All right, well, let's turn to cryptocurrency now. And the global regulators, they're looking into digital tokens and trying to find out ways to incorporate them into the financial system. What is it likely to come from it? His thoughts. Ian Lowe from Dacxi joins us now live. Ian, great to have you on. Give us a bit of an update as to where the regulators stand at the moment. Any news that we should know about?
Yeah, look, this it's almost a weekly cadence at the moment with various developments from a regulatory perspective. A couple of things in the last week that are worth reflecting on. So, on Wednesday in Sydney, the AFR Super and Wealth Summit was held, and that's a major industry event. Crypto, not surprisingly, was referenced constantly throughout the event. One of the keynote speakers, Senator Jane Hume. Now, she's the Minister for Superannuation, Financial Services, and the Digital Economy. She gave a keynote address, and in that address, she really encouraged industry and government to embrace the opportunities presented by blockchain, decentralized finance, and digital assets generally. A couple of noteworthy things that she said, I'll just share them with you. Decentralized finance underpinned by blockchain will present incredible opportunities. Australia must not be left behind by fear of the unknown. As an industry and as government, we need to acknowledge this is not a fad. We should tread cautiously but not fearfully. This next quote was my favorite. Don't be the person in 1995 who said the internet was a fad, a place for geeks and criminals, and would never be mainstream. And she also said that innovation begins as disruption and becomes ubiquitous down the track. So, look, essentially very up-tempo, enthusiastic about the opportunities that the blockchain technology innovation presents, and encouraging industry and government to get behind it. In contrast to that, the body language of the RBA is really quite significant as well. So in the last week, Tony Richards, who's head of payments for RBA, came out and announced that the value of many cryptocurrencies could crash when central banks decide to assert control over them. Now, the insight here is the language of deciding to assert control. Perhaps the command and control body language of the RBA, it can't be a surprise. They are ultimately a protectionist mechanism. But look, I think they're also right. Regulation in all its different forms will inevitably accelerate the maturity of the crypto market, and it will shake out a number of the unsustainable cryptocurrencies. Now, the industry more generally in Australia sees that as a really good thing, and they're screaming for the regulators to act. And when they do, the market is going to really accelerate. First of all, it's going to provide a lot of confidence at the retail end of the market, and participation will inevitably grow and potentially very significantly as a result. But the larger institutional players will also be able to participate. This is one of the reasons we saw such a great response to some of the ETF products that were launched in the US and in Australia more recently, is because the institutions are tearing a hamstring to participate. And because cryptocurrencies are somewhat regulated rather than completely regulated, they're on the sidelines until that regulation arrives. So I think regulation is going to be great. It will mature the market. It will accelerate the growth of the market. It will get rid of some of the pretenders. Look, the RBA have also made some slightly more ridiculous assertions. All of the independent research points to about 1 in 5 eligible investors in Australia currently own or have owned crypto. RBA came out and said, well, that's implausible. They're just completely wrong. And what it highlights, I think, is this philosophical gap between the likes of the RBA and the government, who are obviously much more pro-innovation. How will that sort of, that philosophical gap ultimately play out? Well, look, there's two things. Regulation is coming. That's really good. The industry wants and needs that. The bigger question, I think, is how quickly will that regulation arrive? And the view of the industry is that regulators are probably not going to be able to move fast enough. So the industry seriously doubts the ability of regulators to bring in regulation fast enough to take advantage of the opportunity.
Ian, lots going on, but how is the industry down here, some of the big players that are offering crypto to retail traders, responding? Have they seen any changes recently?
Well, I think all of the players, centralized, decentralized exchanges, whether they're at the trading end of the spectrum or if they're sort of a wealth platform, more so, which is our perspective. It's very much stay close to the developments. And look, having said that, industry bodies such as Blockchain Australia are doing a really good job of representing industry voices into stakeholders like government and regulators to help them understand not just what the industry players are looking for, but frankly to help them understand that by and large the industry is represented by or made up of really good actors who are abiding by all the rules, and so that message also needs to be conveyed through the media. I think there's this slightly deliberately obtuse narrative around the Wild West, when in actual fact, compliance to the regulation frameworks that are in place for crypto is extremely good and has been for a while. So, it's very much try and participate in the debate to influence the outcome and accelerate the outcome. But in the meantime, we'll take a wait and see approach.
Ian, I understand eToro have delisted a few coins. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this is also a variation on the regulatory theme. At least it looks to be. So, I think many would know who eToro are. They're a very, very significant global trading platform provider. Not yet sort of in the top 5 or so players in crypto, but otherwise very substantial player globally. So they've announced in the last few days that they've chosen to delist 2 cryptocurrencies in the US market. Those 2 are Cardano and Tron. Now, Cardano will be known to many. They're about the 6th largest cryptocurrency currently by market cap, valued at $56 billion US. Tron comes in at number 33, valued at $7 billion US. I think the insight here is that eToro are only delisting these cryptocurrencies next year in the US market. So what that certainly suggests, in the absence of eToro giving us any detail, because they haven't announced why, but what that suggests is that it's related to or points to some kind of US regulatory development, and it's in anticipation of that. But look, this is a really good example of how regulatory frameworks in various markets and more generally are going to accelerate the evolution of the industry, and that's a good thing.
Ian, before you go, price action when it comes to the big names, Bitcoin, Ethereum, what are we seeing at the moment? What can we expect from the weekend?
Oh, look, you tell me. I think it continues to be a bumpy ride. Look, I think where we see periods of volatility, which we've seen in recent weeks, what underpins that is that there was a strong run on the price, particularly of the majors, and they tend to move in parallel with each other. A strong run on the price, a dip in the price, and really what we're seeing is all of that correlates to a new floor in the price. And each time that floor seems to be coming up. So if you look at it on a channel basis, there will be volatility. The breadth of that channel is wider than we see in other markets like equities. But I think as long as we take an investor mindset to cryptocurrency, understand the underlying use cases, really stick with those where that use case resonates and points to a long-term viable business, and take a medium to long-term position, an investor position rather than a trader's position, then I think most people that follow that path will do well.